presents Erik's Hour of Effing Enlightenment.
Thank you for joining us on History FM Radio on liveparanormal.com and history.fm. From paranormal to the unexplained history, it all happens here. Looking to enhance your radio experience? Participate in live interactive chat 24/7 with our radio show hosts and other like-minded people on www.liveparanormal.com, the only interactive social chat room supported by full interactive media. Stop by now and join in on the fun.
Hello, everybody. We're having a little technical difficulties. Can anybody hear me? Hello, Kim. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, good. We had some technical difficulties, people, but the show is going to go on. For some reason, I wasn't able to connect. Anyway, welcome to the Channeling Erik presents Erik's Hour of Enlightenment. Sorry about this test run, guys. We knew it would be a little bit rough, but we're going to hang on and make this right. Now, to give you guys a backstory, my son Erik, now a spirit guide, took his life 6 years ago. And, you know, I'm a physician, raised by atheists, so I was a skeptic about life after death. 3 days after he died, though, Erik appears before my atheist father, giving him the shock of his life. And he started making himself known to us, turning on unplugged appliances, dropping airsoft BBs from the ceiling, turning on faucets, calling us on the telephone, appearing in front of us, and much more. Now, since then, I've traveled a very long and bumpy road from skepticism to belief, but now I have the proof I need to know that my son is still alive, just without a body. And he's just living in another dimension. If you want the details of Erik and my journey together, please check out our blog, Channeling Erik. That's www.channelingerik.com, and Erik is spelled with a K. Now, as a spirit guide, Erik's helped thousands of blog members all over the world, saving them, not only figuratively, but sometimes literally. The purpose of this radio show is to make Erik more accessible to you, his listeners, so he can expand his reach and help more people. Now, you can pose your questions by calling either 619-639-4606 or 347-202-0316. Now, talented medium Kim Babcock is with us, and she serves as Erik's translator. Kim, tell us everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hello. Yes, it's a pleasure to finally be here and get this up off the ground. You know, my backstory is a little bit about myself. I went to school and studied physical therapy and furthered myself with a degree in healthcare management. But all the while, knowing I had a connection to the spiritual side of things, the other dimensions that were always surrounding us, just didn't quite understand it. So, you know, the more I became, I guess the more I felt that tug in that direction, the more I just honored what I felt naturally, and that's just a connection to the other side. And as I began to read different books to kind of dive into quantum physics and metaphysics, I really learned what my purpose was here, what my purpose is here in this life, and that's to translate messages for spirit, to help people reconnect to their loved ones on the other side and bring forth messages of helping, healing, and comfort. And in that journey, in that pursuit of self-fulfillment and the spiritual side of things, I found Erik and Erik's blog, and it was history ever since. Just like you said, Elisa, I've seen him come in and have a direct hand in saving the lives of some of my clients, and that's why I'm so devoted to being a voice for him, to help so many of you listeners out there, through life guidance and the questions that you have that apply to, how to help you live a better life here in the physical realm. That's what Erik's all about.
That's awesome. Now, Erik has written a wonderful book, My Life After Death, a Memoir from Heaven. It is a bestseller, 5-star rating on Amazon, and he gives in it a very detailed description of his journey from moments before his death to the present. He describes everything in such amazing detail: his own death, his goodbyes, his funeral, his crossing over, his life review, what heaven's like, what life as a spirit is like, and so on. Now, I understand from my husband who's listening to the show that there's an incredible echo. Are you getting an echo too, Kim?
No, I'm crystal clear on my end. I don't hear any echo.
All right, well, I'm going to talk to some of the callers in the screening room. Why don't you, Erik, hello, my sweetie. How are you? You're here.
He says, hello, my mother. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
He goes, oh, man, where do I?
Hello, this is Lisa. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, this is Elisa. Can you hear me?
Side to the physical side of life.
Well, Erik, would you like to start out by teaching us a little bit of something? I'm trying to figure out how to screen these calls, and it doesn't seem to be cooperating. But while I'm doing that, what would you like the listeners to take away from today's show?
He goes, ooh, thank you for that platform, Mom.
Hey, I try.
He's like blushing. He says, this is such a good opportunity he says, so many of you are gonna relate to this message. He says, I want to build on what I just explained. He says, going through life, so many of us, we change. He says, change is inevitable. Things change, situations change, circumstances pass you by. But ultimately, remaining that constant state of awareness, that constant sense of self is what's most important. He says, but too often, as humans here in the physical realm, we tend to base that off of the circumstances we're in. Certain circumstances or events, even relationships, can make you feel more like yourself or less like yourself. But in all reality, he's laughing. He says, I like that word reality because that can be an illusion sometimes. That's a whole other can of worms we'll get to later. But he says, in all reality, you are you without any circumstances at all. Circumstances are going to change. They're going to continue to evolve, and so are you. But don't base your worth and your being off of the circumstances that you're surrounded by. He says, I wish if I could go back and tell myself something in my physical life before I passed, I wish it would be that, to have a deeper understanding that I base a lot of my self-worth off of the circumstances I was surrounded by, and so many of us tend to do that. He says, but ultimately your existence isn't based off of the circumstances around you. He says there's more truth to having that constant sense of awareness, that constant state of awareness in that sense of self. And he says sometimes looking back through different circumstances, you can observe. He says you should observe yourself and who you are and your actions through those different circumstances. And that self-observation is what helps you to evolve. But never base your worth, he says, off of different circumstances. That's a huge message for so many because we tend to do that all too often, Mom. He says, how was that for an intro? So hopefully many of you guys out there listening, can understand what he's saying, and going through different circumstances in life, no matter what they are, your highs and lows, we all go through highs and we all go through really low lows, but never should it define your self-worth and value, your self-value. Your value is a constant. He says finding that and aligning with that can be pretty tricky. He says, but I got some tricks up my sleeve. I can help you learn how to connect to that sense of self-worth and carry that through circumstances.
And you know what? We've got callers if you want to start taking them now.
Well, sure. Why don't we? Let's take a caller.
Why don't we? We've got Tiana here, and she kind of wants to know is she in the right place? So let's welcome her. Welcome, Tiana. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm really great. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
So excited for y'all.
Thank you. Welcome to the
little
show.
rocky start, but it's a learning curve.
Yeah, it happens.
Mhm.
Kind of how everything starts, right?
That is so true. What would you like to ask Erik? He's all yours.
I just want to ask Erik if I'm on my highest path, if I'm in the right place.
He says, ooh, what a perfect question to lead us into this show. He says, so many people have this question, am I on the right path? Am I on the wrong path? How do I get back on the right path? He says, one thing I want to tell you, Tiana, and everybody out there listening, is you're never necessarily on the wrong path, because no matter where you are in life, there's value in the quote-unquote path that you're on. He says even if sometimes it's rough and rocky or it just doesn't quite feel right and you feel like you need a change, there's still value in it. You're still meant to learn from wherever you are. He says, so don't, for all of you listening out there, don't think that you can fall off of your path and you're unguided and unsupported in that path because it's not the right path for you. He says it's kind of impossible to not be on your own path. He says you're guided to where you are moment to moment because there's learning that's supposed to happen. He says, so know that you're right where you're supposed to be and to learn different lessons in life. He says, so kind of get rid of that thought process and accept where you are for what it teaches you, for the value in it, for the lessons that come with it, he says, even though it might be difficult.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's a great answer.
You're welcome. Well,
I'm
I'm sorry.
speechless, but thank you guys so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for
Thanks
calling
for
in, Tiana. And
Okay,
we have Cheryl.
bye-bye.
We have Cheryl on the next line.
Hi,
and,
Cheryl.
And she wants to know, she wants to know where her new home is going to be, where she's going to move. So, Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here. Hi, Erik. I love you. Thank you so much for what you do.
Oh,
hi, Cheryl.
You're so sweet.
He says, man, I love your enthusiasm.
Yeah, all this bragging, we're never going to be able to live with this boy. Seriously.
So, Erik, I would like to know where my new home's going to be, where I'm going to move to, and what state. What do you see my next home being, my new home?
Ooh, this is a good question. He says, I'll answer this for you after I give you an explanation as to where your question comes from. He says, I'd be doing you a disservice if I just gave you an answer without an explanation. So he says, first of all, I can answer your question. I can give you a location. But oftentimes when I do that, if I do that, he says, I don't like to do that, and here's why. He says, if I give you a direct location on a map, here's your next new address, get ready. He says, then that kind of blocks off all other opportunities and possibilities that were going to come into the picture. He says, because sometimes people get fixated on getting an answer or having that answer out in front of them, and then once they have that answer, they fixate on it. And then ultimately what happens is that changes free will, so to speak. He says you have free will to make your own decisions, but it interacts in a way that people can develop attachments and fixate on that answer. But he says, anyway, very quickly he just said Oregon, like the state of Oregon. So he says, take that for what it's worth to you, but listen to my explanation first. He says, that's what's most important. He says, because no matter what you're trying to manifest in life, if you begin to ask, if you say to yourself, I look so forward to this change, I'm excited about this change, it feels great. But if you say, I look forward to this change in Oregon, and when I get there, he says, then you lock yourself into that framework, closing off all other opportunities that were coming your way. He says, so keep an open mind.
That makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Cheryl, are you still with us?
Oh, no.
I think we lost her.
Uh-oh. Well, we have another caller.
All right, let's do it.
Ned is on the line. Ned, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, hi. Well, hi, Erik and Kim. It's a pleasure to talk with you guys. I've ran across your site just recently, and I've kind of gone through some spiritual stuff here in the past year. And so my question would be, things aren't that horrible for me, but I've lost a lot of things, and I'm just kind of feeling hopeless. And I know there's a lot of people out in the rest of the world who are probably living in a lot of harder, situations than I am. But so sometimes I kind of feel, feel bad about things. But I'm kind of in a career problem and everything else, and so I just was wondering, how can you deal with those, or asking me that question, I guess you could say.
He says, hey, Ned, he says, thanks for your question, because, again, this is one that so many are going to relate to and benefit from the answer that I give you, so he's thanking you for asking that. He says, first of all, let's look at hopeless and hopelessness. He says the reason why that emotion occurs and can reside in somebody is honestly and truthfully because you're not completely being present with the moment, with the present moment. Hopelessness and being hopeless it's a result emotion, he calls it. He says it's a result of circumstances. So I've lost my job, I've lost my car, I've lost my dog, and the result of that is now I feel hopeless, or my relationship is going down the drain and now I feel hopeless. He says that sense of hopelessness most of the time is a result emotion resulting from different circumstances. He says so that in itself, carrying that from day to day, is thinking about even the last moment or yesterday or last week. He says, so being with the present moment is practicing that. He says it's really hard for people to do that, but practicing that is going to help you move out of that feeling of hopelessness. He says because ultimately when you feel hopeless, it's two things. You're either looking back on something that failed or worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. So sometimes getting caught up in those emotions can lead to a whole disarray of things. He says, so the best thing you can do for yourself is to practice being present with the moment. Don't even worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Don't even worry about what happened yesterday. Yesterday's over and done with, and tomorrow isn't here yet. He says, so to even if he says he's talking about even if it's been years since you've found a partner or been in a job that you felt like you really were valuable in, he says this goes back to what we were just talking about, placing your worth in circumstances instead of just within self. If you connect to the present moment and connect yourself in the present moment, those feelings of hopelessness will kind of diminish, he says. So it's really about detaching from worry in the future and the result emotion from things that have happened in the past.
Well, that sounds like a great answer.
And I guess, I've been working on meditation. That's kind of hard, but I guess that's something that would help an awful lot with that.
Ooh, he says, yeah, but here's the thing. A lot of people think meditation means sit and be quiet and listen to something other than your own thoughts. He goes, but that's not true. He says, while that works for some people, jiu-jitsu or kung fu is their meditation, qigong, or even
interesting.
Gardening. He says,
Ned's going to kick ass. That's what he's going to do.
He says, for me, it was music. Music was my meditation. That's where I found me. He says, so don't think that you have to sit on a mat with your hands out in the Om position chanting Om to meditate. He says, what makes you feel connected to yourself is your meditation.
Oh, I like that. I need to interrupt and let you guys know that you are listening to Channeling Erik, Hour of Enlightenment on liveparanormal.com. Are we ready to go to our next caller?
Sure. Thanks for calling in, Ned. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. Call back if you need anything.
Okay.
All right. Now?
So far, so good.
Now we have someone who has a very interesting question about the higher self and her higher self. I just did, Kim and I just did a session channeling my higher self, and that sparked a lot of interest. People really want to get in touch with their higher self, and I think that everybody should really kind of have a come to Jesus meeting. They need to have a come to Jesus meeting with their higher self. Like, what have you done to me? What life have you planned for me? But anyway, so you're on the line. You want to go ahead and take it from here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Hi.
Yes, I just wanted to see if you could bring in my higher self and maybe give me an idea of what I'm supposed to learn this time around or what my purpose is.
Yes. What is your first name again? I missed it.
It's Lisa.
Lisa, okay. Erik says, he goes, here you go. So in bringing in your higher self, the biggest question that Erik heard, he says, is, what am I here for this time around? What is the purpose of this incarnation? The higher self says very loudly, emotional stability. But it's not something, she says, it's not something that's going to be learned based on your want or your desire. It's going to be learned based on your experiences. So the different experiences that you go through in life will bring about different emotions. And at times those can be peaks and pits, ups and downs. But that's a time for self-observation. And she says that's a time for you to learn what it means to emotionally stabilize through different circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean walk through life being or feeling numb and not feeling anything, but rather not reacting based on the emotions that you have tied to certain events or situations. So she says this incarnation is all about emotional stability and not reacting. Certain individuals might say things that spark an emotion and want to spark that reaction, and you want to react with this or that, but instead process instead of react, and then observe yourself through that and learn that emotional stability through different situations.
Okay. Does it have to do with self-esteem as well?
She says partially. Self-esteem, I guess a better term she uses is self-worth, because even though you might face criticism from other people, not letting that affect you emotionally and reacting. So similar to self-esteem, but more so better defined would be self-worth. So being able to carry your self-worth through that emotional stability.
Okay. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Good.
And
You're
Lisa,
welcome.
you
Thanks
are
for
worth
calling.
so much. You are perfect just as you are. All right, so let's see. Thank you for calling. And we have Therese. Therese is on the line. Her partner died in the same way you did, Erik. So, Therese, the floor is yours, sweetie.
First of all, I love you, Elise. Thank you.
I love you too.
Erik, I love you guys. I love, he's kept me alive, and thank you. I don't want to waste time because I know there's a lot of people hurting, and I can't afford a reading, so I just would like to ask why he did this, if I may, and also make it somehow also relate to everybody that's suffering from this, because there's not a lot of help out there other than you guys.
Oh, what a wonderful caller and wonderful question, and the way that you open
it's just
it up,
so selfless.
The way you open it up for everybody else to benefit too. Time is never wasted on these shows. So, Erik says, your partner, like myself, and so many others, going through life, he says, kind of seems to be the theme of the night. How going through life, things can be so circumstantial, and the peaks and the pits of emotions, the extreme ups and the extreme downs can be circumstantial, and that's a huge part of when you see individuals take their own lives. But ultimately, he says specifically for your husband, also for so many, it's, when you can't maintain that stability, you begin to question your connections. You begin to question your roots. What are you rooted in? Where do you feel solid connections? And you begin to feel disconnected from people, from events. He says, and then that in itself, will play tricks on your mind. It's very hard to get through, Erik says, and that's why a lot of people, they feel the emotions that they go through, they feel like nobody, even though they're surrounded by love and support, they often feel like nobody's going to quite understand the way they feel or why they feel that way. So Erik says, for your husband, that's the answer I can give in being truth as to why this happened to him. He didn't feel solidified in his sense of self. He didn't feel solidified and connected in his role and in his purpose in life. He says, Erik says, it's very similar to how I felt. Like, he says, so many of you out there have best friends and you feel so solid in that connection with them. He says, I felt really lofty. I had some good friends, but he says, the friendships that I made, they just seemed to be so lofty and wishy-washy. And he says, when you, ultimately it's mental illness as the root of the cause, but he says you begin to convince yourself that you're not valuable to anybody. He says that your self-worth just plummets. And then you convince yourself you're a burden to people, and ultimately, he says that's what leads to this decision. He says, but for so many of you listening, he says, so many of you have heard this, but so many of you need to hear this. And you too, with your husband, he says, just because somebody may exit this way does not mean that they're not entitled to love in the afterlife. He says that's untruth, and I want that to be clear, that no matter how you enter or exit your incarnation, you're still worthy of love in the afterlife. He says, so please know that your husband is okay, and everybody listening, if you've lost a loved one to suicide, they're still worthy of love, and it's complete here, he says.
Exactly. Just like I love Erik, and, he has said in his book that he learned from Kali, his therapist, that a death is a death is a death. Just like a birth, whether it's C-section or breech or sideways or upside down or going down a roller coaster, it's still a birth. So
yeah, he says there's no hierarchy here. There's no judgment.
I think there's for itself. We weren't enough for them to stay for. How do we cope with that? It's like we weren't. Because a lot of us want to leave this plane ourselves, but we don't because we know what it'll do to others. And I haven't killed myself because I wouldn't want to put my kids through that. And I don't understand that. Is there also a disconnect there, or they don't love it? I don't know what I'm saying. It's just.
No, oh my gosh, that is such a great, Therese, that is such a great question. What do you say, Erik?
Erik says, he says, when you go through the loss of a loved one in this manner, he says 99.999% of the time, it's not because we felt like our family fell short of being one way or another for us. It's because we had a misunderstanding of who we were, of who we are, and of our purpose and our value. And he says he says, I can only speak for myself here. He goes, I think it's relatable for many, but I'm only speaking for myself. He says, in making the decision to take your own life, you get to a point, he says, I got to a point to where I was so numb, I honestly didn't evaluate in my mind and in my heart how it was going to affect others. He says, so sometimes it honestly, individuals with mental illness or mental health problems are incapable of that capacity to be able to evaluate, how's this going to affect my family and what's this going to do to them? He says the ability to have those critical thinking skills and those deep thoughts is very lacking in people like myself and other people. He says, so when coping with the loss of a loved one, often people find not that they're angry at themselves and that's why they want to take their life, but they want to be with their loved one on the other side. So sometimes that's why people take their own life. He says, trust me, I can speak on behalf of many that we don't want that for you. He says, we have healing to do through different recovery phases here, but we don't want you to suffer, to go through what we did. It's not, he says, it's not an answer. It's a permanent solution to something that's very temporary circumstances, he says.
Thank you. I just wonder, like, for all the people that are left behind already, 2 people have tried to kill themselves that loved him, And, I don't want to take up too much time. Can I just ask this? When Erik says they're doing work on the other side and we can't connect to them, I get confused about that. I don't know if I'm the only one that has that, where we're trying to connect with them and they say, well, they're busy doing work or healing on the other side and that kind of thing. What are we able to see what actually is going on, or is that like it's like if they're here with us, we're like, what are you doing in the other room kind of thing,
Yeah.
I know what that sounds like.
Yeah, no, Erik says there's, he says, well, it can really be anything here. He says there's free will to do or experience whatever you need to, but most of the time, he says, people want to keep themselves busy. They want that continued forward movement in their soul growth. He says, so a lot of times people keep themselves busy, whether it's re-experiencing certain hobbies or studying through certain spiritual experiences to gain knowledge and understanding of their spiritual self. Either way, though, he says, there are times when, he says, there's a short and he's saying short with air quotes, like, time isn't linear for them. It's just all one all at once. But he says there's a short period of time when, depending on how you depart, you go through your own recovery phase. And there's certain things you just don't interrupt, like the life review. He says you don't interrupt that process for somebody else. You kind of let them have that time for themselves, because ultimately they're going to come out. He says they're going to go in a rock. They're going to come out, a spiffed up diamond shining. He says so. The more recovery they go through, the more life review they go through and process without interruption, so to speak. He says the better they're going to come out, the better understanding they're going to have of who they are, what they are, and ultimately being able to communicate with you more. He says, but also, as a side note, he says grief is a huge brick wall that's hard, we can't jump.
Tell me about it.
Penetrate. Oh. He says, we want you to know we're with you, and we'll do everything in our power to let you know. But sometimes your grief is your very own barrier that we can't get through. So just be patient with yourself, you and your family. He says, allow all of yourselves to heal at your own time and at your own pace. He says, be compassionate with yourself.
That's awesome. And Erik, hopefully you'll help her along when she needs it, right?
Oh, I've been calling you, Erik. Where are you?
Erik, you're going to be there with her and help her. Therese, thanks so much for that question. I think it's going to probably has touched a lot of people, and I really appreciate you for that.
Yes,
I just want to acknowledge you, Elise, for doing this. So thank you, because I know what you've gone through is unimaginable. Yeah. So thank you for being you. I'll get off your line. I'm sorry for taking so much time.
No problem.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Okay, I want to let you guys know, if you are just now joining us, that we are on a show, the Channeling Erik Hour of Enlightenment, and the spirit guide Erik is answering all sorts of questions. Channeling Erik Hour of Enlightenment on liveparanormal.com. Now, next, we have Lily, and she wants to ask that same question about her higher self. A very good question. Lily, take it from here.
Yes. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Lily. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Erik. I wanted to ask Erik if he could bring my higher self in, because I want to know, why did I choose this life? I had a mother who was not loving, and Erik did connect her to me. I didn't know who my father was, and this has affected me all of my life. And I wanted, excuse me,
You're okay.
I wanted to end because I feel like I don't belong to the family that I was born to. And I know deep within my heart of hearts and my soul that I am a loving, kind-hearted person. But why would I choose this? Why these lessons? Because it's made me feel, excuse me.
Take a deep breath, Lily.
Just a little overwhelming.
Take a deep breath.
It's kind of made me feel less than that of a woman, less than that of a mother, and I don't want to take the path that my own maternal unit caused, because, I'm human, and don't get me wrong, I do love my mother, but I don't like her for the things that she has basically thrown on me, and she's over there with Erik too. She has been apologetic, but I just find it difficult for me to kind of move on, because it's like, I don't even know. I don't have words. Just, can you bring my higher self so I can know what my purpose is to
Lily's
being
higher
here?
Self.
Yeah,
Lily's higher self. Erik, bring her forward.
Please.
Erik is, when you first asked, he brought your higher self forward, and this is what I'm hearing, that, as you see different people, it seems some people in life have a cakewalk their whole life, and it seems like everything comes easy, nothing is upsetting, it just seems like their life then you see others, and it's like, man, aren't they ever going to catch a break? It seems like they've been through so much, and their life has been so tough, the losses and the things they've been through. Erik says there's all sorts of experiences from one end of the scale to the other. He says, but oftentimes when you see people like yourself with such intense experiences from childhood up till now, he says that's because coming into this life, coming into this incarnation, you knew how heavy it was to be human, how hard it was to be human. So basically, and he says, in all honesty, you don't want to do this very much, meaning be human. You don't want to have to incarnate over and over to learn certain lessons. So you
I don't.
He says, you decided coming into this life that you wanted to basically bring it all in as much as possible in one incarnation, so as to not have to reincarnate to learn different. Your higher self says you have learned betrayal. You have learned, betrayal from being a victim of those types of circumstances, I should say, not symptoms. You have learned, being completely with self, like feeling alone or lonely. But your higher self says in those circumstances, it's not to victimize you. Rather, it's if you can look back through the circumstances that you've been in and see that you've still been you through each circumstance. You've maintained a constant sense of self through each circumstance. Even though emotions might have been off the charts one way or another, you've still been you. So she says, know that your self-worth isn't dependent upon how much somebody else loves you. Whether that's a parental figure or a partner.
Because I don't have that. I don't have it. I know I don't. And I'm okay with that now.
She keeps repeating betrayal, making me feel like that was a huge lesson that you came here to learn. It's happened more than once in this life in big ways, she says. So looking back, she says, be able to, as hard as it is, find value in why you feel displaced. It's like feeling like I feel displaced from family, from friends, from partners, from relationships that should be completely in sync in my life, like a mother. But know that your self-worth doesn't depend on the reflection, their ability to reciprocate your love and your emotions. Your self-worth is dependent upon, she says, your self-worth is dependent upon just your ability to love others and give love and rise above the circumstances and continue to be you.
Lily, you must be a strong soul to have come with this on your plate, girl.
Yes.
And I wish I was there.
Tired.
I wish I was there.
Tired.
I wish I was there to hug you, sweetie.
No, I wish I was too.
Erik, go hug Lily, please.
He says, I will. I'll bring her up.
Okay, Lily.
I don't want to be here anymore. No, this is too much. I don't.
I think if you were nudged
I'm going to commit suicide. I'm not saying that. But if I get an exit point, I'm gone. I'm gone. And I don't ever want to come back here.
I think that if you were nudged here to the blog or the radio show or what have you, that must mean you're here still for a reason.
Absolutely.
Lily's higher self, what is her reason for staying?
She still has family that she cares about. She truly deeply cares about herself. Above all circumstances, she can still maintain self-love, and she still has family that she does cherish and value those relationships. So hold on to that and know that Erik says he's working to lift you up vibrationally so that you can move forward from circumstances in the past that have hurt you.
Okay.
Yeah, Erik, help her. Help her, sweetie.
Erik
All right,
is
Lily.
going to help you feel more connected, Lily, to life's purpose. So I wish you all the best, Lily, and please don't hesitate to get in touch if you ever need anything.
Okay. Thank you, guys, and I love you. Love you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
We love
you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, now we have the ever-patient Madeline, who wants to know about some tests that will run on her husband. Hi, Madeline.
Hi, guys. And you know what? We can change up that question now that I've been listening. I thought, oh, my God, that's not a good question.
You ask anything you want, sweetie.
Yeah. What I'd really like to do is just sing your guys' praises. I have been a member of the Channeling Erik group for a couple of years. And it was very pivotal years in my life with the passing of two mothers. And Erik, man, was he there with me the whole way, even to a dragonfly. He right in front of my windshield, going in the path into Mom's palliative room, and signs galore, and inspiration and help. And he is just awesomely helping so many people. And I applaud your courage so much, because your experiences and your stories and your videos have helped so many, and me have touched on so many different issues in my life that I couldn't or wouldn't sit with, didn't find I could do it. But through the blog, it allowed me to do that on my time with your support. That group, our group is awesome. And I hope everybody is aware and everyone treasures it as much as we all do.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
That's so sweet. You know, just that message in itself is a huge reflection of the way Erik directly touches the lives of so many, helping them through difficult times and you know, celebrating with them through fun times. You know, his love and his help isn't limited in any way. The only limit is your imagination as to what he can do. I mean, he's come through and manifested himself in so many ways, and worldwide. You know, he's helping people in Australia, Taiwan, Switzerland, Scotland, Ireland, the Netherlands, the UK.
The universe.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so
and he
so
likes
much.
to mess around with electronics.
Oh, he sure
he
does.
could lay out
Madeline.
sometimes.
Yes, he does.
He's been making these little timers beep in my drawer, and I don't know why all of a sudden they start beeping. I didn't touch them. I haven't touched them for 10 years. So.
He actually sent a text from my iPod to another member in our group, and the other member in our group got the message.
I hope it was G-rated.
So cool.
It was in code, and he got it. It was awesome. I couldn't get over it.
That is
couldn't
so
get over
cool.
It. Yeah, because we confirmed it, Daniel and I, and we were like, oh, my gosh, that's it, Oddie 5. And we knew what it was about. So it was just something else. It gave us both chills, for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Well, Madeline, thank you so much for calling in.
Yes,
and congratulations on the show. I know it's going to be a hit.
Oh,
I hope so. We'll get the wrinkles ironed out, I think.
Oh, yeah, no problem. And I wish you the best.
Thank
you. Love you.
Okay, love you too. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, just want to remind you guys that we are on Channeling Erik's Hour of Enlightenment on liveparanormal.com. And now we have on the line Kathleen, who also wants to talk to her higher self. Lily inspired people. So did the other people that have wanted to talk to their higher self. So Kathleen, take it away, girl.
Thanks, Elisa. I just want to say, Lily, gosh, lots of love and healing energy I'm sending to you, and I know everybody else is as well. We're here for you. We love you, and just hang in there. And also thanks to you, Elisa, for all you do with Erik and Kim as well.
Yeah.
Can you, Kim, can you ask, or Erik, can you bring in my higher self? I'm at a place in my life where, things are going to be changing. I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I'm just really not sure where I should be heading and what I should be doing or whatnot. And I'm kind of wondering what my purpose is for this life, my lessons that I'm supposed to be focusing on in this life. And so can my higher self help me out with with this at all? It would be
the higher
hugely
self
appreciated.
can help you with everything.
Yes.
Awesome.
So you're in good hands with your higher self.
Absolutely.
Take it away, Erik.
Yes. Erik has brought in your higher self, and the word that I keep hearing over and over and over that defines the purpose of this incarnation is all about communication. But as she's talking to you, she's saying that in the past you have almost denied yourself of your creative side, and now it's time to honor that side of you and become more creative through whether it's writing or art or music, whatever it is. It's time to make that shift and honor the creative side of you, but somehow she says, tie it to communication, because you have a great way of communicating or connecting to people through communication and understanding them. So this incarnation is all about using communication, and she says, in crafty ways, in creative ways, to ultimately reach your goals, reach the highest point of yourself in this physical life. So, it doesn't mean different avenues of communication like texting or letters, but different techniques during communication, like different, she's talking about things like body language and gestures and the way you interact with people. You have a way of, when you're with people, talking to them, communicating, your energy is just so sucks you in a good way. People like to be around you, like to talk to you and communicate with you. So,
well, Kathleen, you're the bomb, girl.
She says, get crafty with the way that you learn from people in the way that they communicate back to you, because like learning through different techniques, body language and things, can really teach you a lot about the people you interact with. So for you, she says, it's all about communication. And don't think that that's just an outward thing, too, in communicating with other people. How do you communicate with yourself? Because that's what's really important, is get crafty. She keeps saying that, get crafty with how you communicate with yourself.
Okay. Oh, my gosh. He's so spot on. She's so spot on. Erik and my higher self are so spot on. Any tips for communicating with people that I'm close with? Can you provide any guidance on being better at communicating with and understanding my family and close friends?
Erik's going to take that one. He says, don't think you have to be better at communicating with people. Rather, understand how you communicate with them and why that way works best for that person versus a different technique with a different person. He says it's all about getting to know someone and getting to know the right avenues to travel to get through to them. He goes, trust me, I don't communicate the same way I do to my mom than I do to my dad. He says I use completely different avenues. So begin to realize that and see that the different people are going to take different characteristics, even different verbiage to kind of tune in and connect to them and get their attention when communicating to your family. He says, so don't think you have to be better, just like your higher self said. He says, just maybe a little more crafty.
Got it. Got it. Thank you again
Kathleen.
so much. Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome.
For all you guys do. And again, Lily, we're here. We love you.
Yes, Lily, we're thinking of you.
Yes,
thanks,
we
Erik.
are.
And
well,
thanks to my higher self.
I think we will go ahead and close the show at this point. I do want to let you guys know that feel free to join our Facebook page, our Channeling Erik Facebook page. Plus, we also have a private group if you want to talk about subjects like this in a very safe and supportive arena, and that's the Channeling Erik Facebook book group. Don't forget about Erik's book, My Life After Death. It will change your life. Please join the blog if you haven't already at channelingerik.com with a K. Erik is spelled with a K. And go to our YouTube channel. The Channeling Erik YouTube channel is full of all sorts of amazing videos, including interviews with different notable figures. I also want to let you guys know that Erik is going on tour. We've got an 8-city tour starting in June in Denver. We go to New York City, Sedona, Vancouver, Chicago, Austin, Orlando, San Diego, and there are probably others. I didn't use my fingers to count that, so I'm not sure.
There's
Kim,
quite a few, and these are going to be fantastic events for people to get in touch with Erik on a more personal level, and be able to talk again to your higher self, or ask Erik questions in a gallery-style reading, and follow it up at the end of the convention with trans-channeling Erik, where I allow him to come in and kind of take over body movements in my body and directly connect to you guys. So if you're interested, you can find information on channelingerikmediums.com. And also if you're interested in a private session with myself,